Our author was born August 13, 1957 in Athens, Georgia, as John Elder Robinson. His mother's name was Margaret and she was a sociopath, while his father, John, was an alcoholic. He passed in 2005. John Elder Robinson's family moved around quite frequently. They had spent several years in Philadelphia, Seattle, and Pittsburgh, which is where his brother, Christopher, was born. After his brother was born, John Elder Robinson and his family moved to Amherst, Massachusetts, where he spent most of his life. He has written several books pertaining to his perspective on life, including Look Me in the Eye, Be Different, and Raising Cubby. As a young child, John's Asperger's causes him to be rigid and inflexible when trying to play with his peers. He rejects other children who aren't playing correctly and is himself rejected by others when he attempts to interact. These difficulties are compounded by his dysfunctional home life. John's baby brother is born, whom he quickly nicknames Snort and later Varmint. He begins to look for usefulness in his new sibling and rushes his brother's development, pushing him to walk before he's ready and being rough with him. For example, once he flipped him over like a turtle when he was crawling. John shares a story of smiling in response to hearing that one of his family members had been killed. He explains his thought process in the interaction. He also reflects on the difference between care that is felt strongly when someone close to him is in danger and the logical empathy he experiences when becoming aware of this crisis involving people with whom he is not personally involved. John describes often pulling pranks on peers, family members, and others that ranged from harmless to hurtful. The acceptance he felt from peers in response to his actions encouraged him to be a prankster. He finds his calling when he redesigns an amplifier. John's family life continues to deteriorate, and John meets and befriends Mary, which he nicknames Little Bear, whom he will later marry. John's parents ignore him and his little brother and became more abusive to one another. Both get worse and have to be admitted to institutions. So, he attends a support group for troubled teens. Ironically, John flunks all his classes and is offered a GED, which he aces, but refuses to pay the $20 fee. John becomes more involved in the music business and moves in with the band members. He accompanies the band to Montreal and does not enjoy himself because of the many changes in his routine and diet. He is arrested with the band for drug possession but is eventually released. John returns to the States and grows more confident with his engineering skills but still has no confidence when it comes to relationships. John is hired by a national sound company and designs original sound systems for big band names like Pink Floyd. He even finds himself more successful in designing guitars for bands like Kiss. He feels he fits in better as he sees the rockers as misfits, just like himself. Although John has had great success and lives the high life with his band work, he often runs out of money between gigs. He installs sound and light systems in nightclubs to make ends meet. John gets his first real job designing video games, which he likes better than working in the club scene. John begins working for Milton Bradley, a toy company, and shows ingenuity in his work. He is rewarded with the leadership management position, but has less success because of the increased demand for interacting with people. John quits his high-paying management job and begins buying, fixing up, and reselling cars. He struggles, going deeply in debt. Ultimately, John learns how to make the business work, and it becomes very profitable for him. John's son, Cubby, whose real name is Jack, is born to him in Little Bear. John is very attentive and present with Cubby, and his prankishness continues as he plays jokes on his son. A therapist befriends John after purchasing a Land Rover from him. After 10 years of friendship, he takes a risk and presents John with a psychologist Tony Atwood's book about Asperger's. John at first is taken aback, but after reading the symptoms, identifies with the disorder and feels a tremendous relief that there are others like him out there, and that he isn't the only social miscreant that everybody thought he was. John describes growing apart from and eventually divorcing Little Bear, and his next marriage to Martha. John wonders whether or not he picked the best mate in Martha, and considers her other two sisters as potentially better alternatives. John has the cathartic experience of moving back to Amherst, Massachusetts area and looking for a new school for Cubby. His trepidations are short-lived when he discovers that all the people who had rejected him are gone and that many who are still there welcome him with open arms. John attributes their welcome to his having improved his relationship skills. John is delighted to return. Armed with his new knowledge of Asperger's, he has success with individuals and groups. For the first time, he feels confident, loved, accepted, and for once in his life, normal.